You are now listening to The Picture of Dorian Gray, the deep dive abridged audiobook, narrated in the glittering third-person voice Oscar Wilde gave it, but expanded for modern ears that crave every fragrant detail and every poisonous whisper. This version lingers in the salons, the garrets, and the opium fog, so you can taste the era's champagne bubbles and feel the chill of its moral nightfall. Author's preface: a lamp for the journey. Before the curtains part, Wilde steps forward with 20 aphorisms that clang like temple gongs. He insists art is its own excuse, that moral and immoral books do not exist, only well-written and badly written ones. Critics merely confess themselves. Beauty needs no justification. All art is quite useless. Keep those ironies close. They will glow like coals under every scene to come. Chapter 1. Roses, Cigarettes, and the Portrait That Shouldn't Be Shown. Basil Hallward's Kensington studio is drenched in scent: damask roses, lilac drifting through French doors, laburnum burning gold outside. Lord Henry Wotton reclines on a Persian saddlebag divan, exhaling blue rings of Turkish cigarette smoke, lazily admiring Basil's new canvas. On the easel stands the life-sized portrait of Dorian Gray, a young man so dazzling that even the laburnum seems to tremble in sympathy. Basil refuses to exhibit the picture. He has put too much of himself into it. Henry, amused, pronounces the usual Wotton gospel. Notoriety is better than obscurity, and the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. Dorian himself, unannounced, wanders in, all sunlight hair, sapphire eyes, and unself-conscious grace. Henry's feline curiosity sharpens. Basil, sensing danger, begs his friend not to spoil the boy. They drift into the garden, daisies quivering underfoot, where Henry extracts from Basil the name Dorian Gray and resolves to know him better. Chapter 2. The Sermon of Hedonism and the Fatal Wish. Inside, Dorian plays Schumann at the piano until Henry begins his quiet assault. Influence, he murmurs, is always immoral because it hands your soul to another. Real life, he says, is self-development, the pursuit of every impulse, the worship of youth before time's butcher knife comes down. The words strike Dorian like brandy on an empty stomach. Henry's monologue rises to prophecy. One day Dorian's face will wrinkle, his lips fade, his beauty die. Horror floods the boy. He sees Basil finish the portrait, sees its fresh, unmarred perfection, and suddenly understands the cruelty of chronology. In a burst of panic, he cries that he would give anything, even his soul, if the picture could age in his stead. Basil protests, Henry laughs, and a tremor of destiny quivers through the perfumed air. Chapter 3. Aunt Agatha's Luncheon and the Social Baptism. Next noon, Dorian attends Lady Agatha's philanthropic luncheon, a jungle of orchids and moral clichés. Politicians bleat about sanitation, bishops purr over soup. Henry, at Dorian's elbow, turns the gathering into a private tutorial in paradox. Charity is vanity in disguise, he whispers. Virtues are merely refined vices. Dorian's laughter rings clear. The matrons take it for innocence. Henry hears the first chime of complicity. Chapter 4. Prince Charming and the stage door romance weeks pass. In Basil's studio, Dorian bursts in incandescent with news. He is engaged to Sybil Vane, a 17-year-old actress who plays Juliet like an angel. He recounts shabby staircases smelling of orange blossom perfume, the gas-lit theatre where Sybil becomes Desdemona, Imogen, Rosalind. Henry needles, Basil frets, but Dorian's joy is absolute. A note from Henry arrives later with rare white orchids and sly congratulations. Already the older man is folding this love story into his aesthetic experiments. Chapter 5. Behind the Footlights, Sybil's World. We slip to a dingy Bloomsbury lodging house where Sybil polishes a cracked mirror while her mother, a faded actress, counts the night's takings. James Vane, her sailor brother home on leave, warns that rich gentlemen ruin girls. Sybil, dreamy-eyed, calls Dorian her Prince Charming. James swears that if the unknown lover hurts her, he will kill him. London's street lamps flare like orange moons as his ship pulls away downriver. Chapter 6. The Engagement Made Public. Henry and Basil dine at the Bristol to celebrate, or autopsy, the engagement. Dorian arrives late, radiant, describing Sybil's genius in ecstatic detail. Basil toasts the union. Henry predicts its collapse with velvet malice, yet even he is momentarily moved by the purity in Dorian's voice. Outside, lamplight glitters on carriage wheels. The trio part under a summer star. Chapter 7. A Ruined Performance and the First Twist of the Mouth. Basil and Henry accompany Dorian to the theatre. Sybil, drunk on real-life love, can no longer feign stage passion. Her Juliet is wooden, her voice brittle. The pit hisses. Dorian's worship turns to revulsion. Backstage, he breaks the engagement cruelly. Sybil, white as chalk, whispers that his love was her art. Without it, she is nothing. Dorian walks the foggy streets till dawn. Returning home, he notices a subtle alteration in the portrait. The lips seem curled in a faint sneer. Shock freezes him. The bargain is real. But a telegram from Henry arrives. Sybil has swallowed prussic acid in her dressing room. Henry calls it a perfect artistic solution. Dorian, numb, agrees to dine with him at the opera. Chapter 8. Conscience versus Curiosity. Morning sunlight feels like judgment. Dorian vows to make amends, until Henry's scented letter argues that art must feed on strong emotions, even tragedy. Dorian chooses the opiate of aestheticism, decides to hide the portrait in the locked nursery at the top of his house, and sends Basil away with chilly politeness. Alone, he stares at the sneering face on the canvas and feels a thrill of dark freedom. Chapter 9. Basil's Broken Heart. Basil returns, desperate to understand the rumours. He begs to see the portrait. Dorian refuses, almost snarling. Basil confesses that Dorian is the dominating influence of his art and his life. The friendship fractures. Basil leaves for Paris, grief in his eyes. In the attic, the portrait's sneer deepens, a wound blooming on its hand where Dorian had pressed it against a thorn in the garden. Chapter 10. The Yellow Book and the Locked Attic. Dorian plunges into acquisition. Jewelled dagger hilts, tapestries stiff with pearls, a Florentine mirror framed in cupids. Henry sends a slim novel bound in yellow, a decadent French tale of a young noble who explores every sin. Dorian reads for hours, the prose staining his imagination like aniline dye. That evening, workmen carry the portrait upstairs. Bolts slide, keys turn. The nursery smells of dust and forgotten toys. Chapter 11. The years of perfume, music, and scandal time unspools. Dorian studies rare perfumes in Parma, experiments with Eastern music, collects ecclesiastical vestments for their sensual textures. He hosts midnight suppers where poets leave disgraced and duchesses sigh over his unchanging face. In Paris, he buys rubies said to be powdered from the heart of a dragon. In Amsterdam, he learns the alchemy of enamels. Friends age, reputations crumble, yet Dorian's cheeks stay petal smooth. The portrait unseen becomes a bestiary of corruption. Jaundiced skin, wolfish teeth, a leer of unspeakable knowledge. Chapter 12. A fog, a confrontation, a promise. On a November evening, Basil meets Dorian outside Lady Narborough's. He is heading to Paris but cannot leave while evil rumours coil around his friend. Basil begs Dorian to pray with him. Dorian, lips twitching, invites him home to view the diary of my life. Chapter 13. Murder in the Attic. Under the attic's single gas jet, Basil sees the monstrous canvas and recoils in horror. "This is the face of Satan," he cries, urging repentance. Dorian, in a fit of loathing for both accuser and self, snatches a knife and stabs Basil behind the ear. Blood darkens the floorboards. London's church bells strike one. Dorian wipes the blade on a velvet cloak. Chapter 14. Acid and Blackmail Morning Panic. Dorian coerces Alan Campbell, a chemist once fond of him, to dissolve the body with nitric acid, hinting at secrets that would ruin Alan's family. The laboratory stinks of charred flesh. Alan leaves, shattered. Weeks later, he will shoot himself. That night, Dorian attends Lady Narborough's card party, wins at écarté, and flirts with a Russian princess. Chapter 15. The Spot of Blood. At a dinner with Henry and the Duchess of Monmouth, Dorian feels something sticky on his cuff. Basil's blood he had missed. He nearly faints. Henry prescribes opium for nerves and jokes that science will soon cure conscience. Dorian laughs too loudly. Chapter 16. Opium dens and the shadow of vengeance carriage lamps rattle through Whitechapel to a riverside dive where sailors sprawl like broken marionettes. Dorian gulps pipe smoke, seeking oblivion. Among the haze, a ragged girl calls him Prince Charming. James Vane, risen from the shadows, seizes him by the throat. Dorian drags him under a lamp. The sailor falters. This face cannot belong to the man who seduced his sister 18 years ago. Dorian escapes into the night, heart hammering. Chapter 17. Country Pleasures, Country Terrors. At Selby Royal, his Gothic turreted estate, Dorian hosts a shooting party. Henry dazzles the Duchess with aphorisms about modern marriage. Lady Gwendolen giggles behind a fan. Dorian strolls. The yew walk, and glimpses James Vane's face between the laurels. Panic clenches him, yet he must smile for the croquet set. Chapter 18. A Fatal Shot. Next dawn, mist silvering the meadows. The party lines up for pheasant. A keeper's gun goes off early. A body falls in the copse. It is James Vane, killed instantly. Dorian feels the universe realign around him, protective once more. He sleeps that night without dreams, but the portrait's eyes gleam with cold amusement. Chapter 19. Talk of Reformation. Back in Grosvenor Square, Dorian tells Henry he spared a country girl's virtue and intends to be good. Henry yawns. Virtue, dear boy, is merely the confession of boredom. He teases Dorian about Basil's disappearance. The police are puzzled. Dorian shivers, clutching a jasmine-scented handkerchief, and wonders if confession might purge his soul. Chapter 20. The Last Knife Stroke. Midnight. Rain ticks on the attic skylight. Dorian, candle in hand, confronts the grotesque portrait. If only he could kill the conscience it embodies. He stabs the painted heart. A howl echoes through the house. Servants rush up to find a withered, hideous old man in evening dress, knife in heart, rings on bony fingers. The portrait on the easel is once again the young Apollo Basil painted years ago, lips parted in innocent wonder. Epilogue. The mirror-shattered police call it an inexplicable suicide. Henry will shrug, society will gossip, and the painting will likely vanish into some collector's vault. Yet the tale remains, a study in the soul's chemistry, proof that Wilde's preface was both challenge and curse. Art may be useless, but it exacts a price. Beauty divorced from conscience becomes a devouring flame. As the studio door swings shut, we hear Lord Henry's silken voice fade. There is only one thing worse than being talked about. And somewhere far off, a rose petal drops, untouched by time.